Welcome to Newsmakers. In this edition, we will say goodbye to our temporary set as we move into a new studio. You probably noticed the disappearance of our news desk a few months ago.
That was the start of our transition. The studio needed to be prepared for new technology being made possible by a MOExcels grant. We'll talk all about that shortly, but first the changes. Our old set was removed. It had been donated to us by KOAM-TV and served us wonderfully for many years, but we made sure it found a new home and a new purpose. Nate Billings, a Missouri Southern State University alum, loaded it onto a trailer and took it to Diamond High School. There, he created a new TV studio for his students who are learning about journalism and broadcasting.
For more than 3 decades, Newsmakers has been the go-to source for more than 160,000 people in the surrounding area. Those seeking the latest information and analysis on events in their communities and even the world as a whole. KGCS reporter Jace Opel shows us how Newsmakers has evolved over the years and how the new studio will benefit students and the community.
Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining me today on Newsmakers.
For local generations, the familiar sound of Judy Stiles on Newsmakers has been a comforting constant in a rapidly changing world. From issues discussing city council meetings to even local events, Newsmakers was there to guide you into what's happening locally.
I think always knowing there's someone out there with a story to tell, there's an organization that wants to be represented in the community.
Stiles served as the host of Newsmakers for 35 years, and during that time, she's seen a lot of transformation with Newsmakers.
When it first started, it was a cable access channel, so the only way people could see KGCS at that time was through Joplin cable system.
In the early days of Newsmakers, viewership was limited because cable was their go-to source for viewers. A couple years later, they became a low-powered station and was broadcasted on air for more to see.
In 1988, they became a low-power station. KGCS was called K57DR. I mean, we had an antenna downtown on the bank at 4th and Main, and it pretty much covered the city of Joplin. It was very, you could see us over the air, but we were also stayed on the cable, and I think that's kind of consistent. It's always been on cable.
Before K57DR, it was called MSTV, and at the time, it was broadcasted from a studio located in what was commonly referred to as the Garage, which is now known as the University Relations and Marketing, or the Mansion Annex building, before moving into their permanent home in Webster Hall in 1992.
The back side of the building was just a big open room studio, but it still had good equipment for that era. They had good state-of-the-art equipment then.
In June of 2022, Missouri Southern State University received a $1.5 million MOExcels grant. With this grant, Newsmakers will never be the same again.
We are moving into what we would call a virtual production style of production in both of these studios.
Brian Mearns is a master instructor at the Department of Communications at Missouri Southern, and he says with this grant they're able to fill one of the studios with state-of-the-art equipment and cutting-edge technology.
We'll have multiple cameras with live green screen backgrounds. We have camera trackers, so anywhere you move the camera, in order for it to look realistic, the background has to move accordingly based off the perspective of the camera.
With this new technology, students can use their creativity to create an exclusive set.
In the past, you're kind of stuck with what physical objects can you build a set out of. Now it opens them up to anything that they can imagine.
Green screens allow flexibility with a wide range of various productions, and Dr. Marcy Archer, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Missouri Southern, says the new studio will not only be home for Newsmakers, but be a home for other departments as well.
I've been working with performing arts, the potential of using this space for theater students as well.
The goal for the new studio is to tie the campus together, bringing different skills and passions to develop a new era of news.
I think one of the great strengths of Missouri Southern is our ability to work together, to bridge between areas and collaborate. It's one of our wonderful strengths that we're able to bring all these groups together.
As the studio changes throughout the years, it's not just the physical aspects that transform, but the students, guests, and hosts as well.
I think it's nice to see the program, continuing to grow and evolve. You can't stay in one place, and of course, communication, broadcasting in general is a competitive world, and you prepare students for the future, they have to be prepared for the future.
Thanks to Jace Opel for that introduction to our green screen studio, and welcome to our new Newsmakers real and virtual set. This is all made possible by a $1.5 million MOExcels grant, which is also providing us with an LED wall comparable to those used to create Hollywood programming. MOExcels funding facilitates development and expansion of employee-driven education and training programs. The core concept of our grant is collaboration, particularly the overlap of art, computer science, and communication in the use of computer-generated assets for virtual reality, film, commercial, broadcast, and digital interaction. In this edition, we'll talk with representatives of those three departments. We will begin with Frank Pischker, Professor of Art and Design. Thanks for being here.
Hey, you're welcome.
You were part of the original process and proposal that came about with all this and this new technology. What excites you about it?
Well, mostly the interdisciplinary aspects of it. Really the ability for all different departments to be able to make use of this space, and this intersection of how technology really is used similarly by a lot of areas, but we've treated it as completely different silos, and the kind of breaking down and building bridges instead of having these walled off sections.
So tell us how this will be incorporating the art students and what parts of the process that they will be. I mean, I was told it creates a solid platform for building 3D assets. Is that something that your students will engage in, and what kind of classes apply to this?
We've already had students kind of working on this on their own, even when we didn't have the curriculum developed. So it's really exciting to finally have something for those students. Obviously, a lot of this is predicated on video game development, and that's really a key interest for people wanting to come to school and learn those things. And you don't have to be based in a large city. I have a very good friend who works in video game development. He lives in the Midwest in a town not much bigger than Joplin. And so this gives an ability for us to train people that in the past would not have come here.
Do artists like working in the virtual world and creating virtual assets?
Some do and some don't. Our design students, the people who are really aligned with that, are the ones who mainly embrace this. We do have some of our traditional pen and paper artists who start with that and then import that into computer, and then they can tweak and change things from there, especially if you think of animation. That's another area where you get that marriage of both the fine artist and the computer person sitting there jockeying at the monitor.
Are there new courses that will be created based on this new technology?
We developed a whole set of new curriculum, a certificate called New Media. Really, and that's sort of the key hinge that the whole MOExcels grant was built upon. And that really addresses sort of a whole range of different sort of job opportunities, but basically anything where you're interacting with a digital asset and something you do then keys another thing to happen. All that stuff kind of gets encompassed in this certificate, and that's a wide range of different things that can lead to.
Lots of jobs.
Yeah, lots of jobs. You know, any sort of social media sort of platform, and then all the traditional web design sort of aspects too, and application design, and soon virtual reality design too.
You bet. I mean, we hear about virtual worlds all the time, and those have been created in film studios and things like that. How can this help prepare students for work in virtual production?
Well, certainly, you know, one of the keys is now we have the infrastructure to be able to provide it. And one of the things that actually going to end up is we have to introduce other things we're currently already doing, but at an earlier point. There's a lot of data management that you have to be able to be on top of, and version tracking. So it's sort of not so much that we can suddenly do new things, but we really have to rethink how we do these things. And this facility allows us to do that so much easier, because it's got us the infrastructure so we can actually send that data and store that data and manipulate that data and do things with it, versus right now we've had a 3D scanner for years, but it's not really gone anywhere beyond our lab. So now we can just sort of transfer those files over here, and then somebody else can make use of those. And so we can really, in an interdisciplinary sort of manner, do all kinds of different things that in the past we just wouldn't even think about doing.
We were recently part of LED wall training, which is going to be talked about in more in depth later in this show. But part of that talked about texture and lighting, and those are all things that really are part of an artist world.
Yeah, they are, yes. And that's, a lot of this stuff is keyed off, and that the early sort of software development for graphic design software was predicated off of sort of how printmaking worked, which is where graphic design sort of came from in the traditional hand, you know, worked way. And so all these sort of things are built, knowledge bases built upon one another. And so I think we've got a lot of ways to kind of like really strategize and do cool new things just by how we introduce them. And again, the whole collaborative aspect, the ability to kind of trade back and forth, that's really opens a lot of doors for us.
Which in the real world, that's how it happens. If you're
Right.
making a movie, you need all aspects of
You do.
the computer graphics and the art.
And a lot of what these, the infrastructure we're putting in allows you to do is do that same sort of idea, but do it so much earlier on. You know, when special effects first started happening in movies, that was something that happened at the end after everything else was done.
Right.
Now we can do these things up front, and then the actors can interact with them, or you know, the TV monitors can interact with them earlier on instead of imagining what it's going to look like. We already know what it's going to look like.
Thank you, Frank Fischker. When we come back, we'll get the perspective from digital design professor Elmira Bagherzadeh. But first, a tribute to Dr. Otto Jerome Borkert, a key contributor to the MOExcels grant proposal from the Computer Information Systems Department. Borkert passed away suddenly in May of 2022 after battling complications from kidney failure. He was just 42. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Joining our conversation now is Elmira Bagherzadeh to talk about the opportunities the grant and technology create for our digital design students. Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
I've been asking everyone, so what are you excited about when it comes to this new technology we have here?
Basically, I'm really excited about like all the possibilities that it brings to our students because I know many of them are interested in game, in virtual reality, and I think this would be a very good platform for them to experience, learn more about what the skills they need and how they can improve them, and basically become familiar with this technology that is so attractive and everywhere they are talking about it. And I think I'm the most excited about what students can get, and also basically the collaboration that we can have between the departments and researchers we can do with these new equipments basically.
So how can we work together? I mean, like we have some programs here, you were even just asking, oh, what kind of programs? Could they make the backgrounds?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about giving them these real world opportunities. And so you have some shows basically, and we have some design students who I think would be interested in designing assets in environments because this would make them familiar with what real world expect from them. Yeah. And it's not only working with real objects, but also the ability to be able to make assets for sets, different scenes basically. So I think this would give us a lot of area to collaborate. And also in the art world, you see many artists are just working with VR and they are working with making new digital environments. And I think this is really exciting for them and for us to see how we can expand more and give them more skill sets.
Tell us some of the classes you teach and how they might be able to be applied in this environment.
So the classes that I'm teaching now, which can use these equipment, are motion graphics and digital illustrations. In the future, hopefully, we will have digital art and even with classes such as packaging design. I think they would be able to do packaging photography here, basically using the LED screen or the green screen that we are using. Also with motion graphics, they can do a stop motion animation. They can make 3D assets for motion graphics and use them as background and do all these sort of mix of different techniques. I think this can basically help them to expand on their creative areas and what they can do.
It's a real world experience. I mean, they could put together a portfolio. I mean, we always see in Hollywood, in these movies and the credits, you know, GFX and all, long list of people who do the art for movies. It's not just rolling a camera anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is like a big area that they can work in, and especially in digital illustration as well. With all the things happening in VR and AR, I'm really excited for them to start to experiment with these things and
the students have interest in this. I mean, are they excited?
Yeah. I know that many of them are interested in game design. Many of them are interested in designing for animations. I have students who ask about me and tell me, how should we get into these areas? How can we learn more about it? So I think having these equipments would allow us to add more projects to our courses and kind of be confident about we have the technology for them to be able to work with and expand their ideas.
And it gives them that real world experience that will set them above other candidates.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing and really exciting.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Elmira, for sharing that perspective.
I'm glad.
When we come back, we'll get the Communications Department perspective from Brian Marins. But first, a quick behind-the-scenes look at the installation of the LED wall and what it brings to future productions at Missouri Southern and KGCS.
Behind me is our giant LED wall screen. This is about 13 feet high, 20 feet wide, and made up of thousands of small, tiny LED lights.
The LED wall was purchased as part of the MOExcels grant and was constructed by View Technologies. It arrived in boxes, 8 pallets of boxes with metal framing and dozens of LED panels.
If you look at the screen really closely, you can see each individual pixel essentially. And so each of those is controlled by a processor to show a specific color.
That color and lighting that exists in backgrounds or virtual settings created on computers can be changed in seconds.
Yeah, so this light is movable. So you can see as I move this light, you can see the shadows on the space change. Yeah, changing the direction of the light. I can even change the color here. So I want it a little more moody.
It's done through a computer called the Artist Node.
The Artist Node is where you can make changes to your environment.
Using software called Unreal Engine, the same software used in video games such as Fortnite.
So if you play any computer video games, you'd be very at home with how you navigate through the scene.
Changes to the images go to the Render Node, a separate computer that drives the images in the screen.
It's an infrared camera.
And new technology lets us connect and enter the world of those backgrounds.
Attached to the bottom of this is essentially a computer and then the camera that is tracking the ceiling.
Drew Smith with the View Technologies crew provided training to our staff, training that included how to create a digital map.
I can move my camera and it's physically seeing everywhere that I'm moving this to. It gives you height values.
There are dozens of sensor stickers on the ceiling, which help the system determine the camera's position in 3D space. It's part of the MOExcels Star Tracker system, a big name in the film industry for motion tracking and camera tracking information.
It's physically connected in real space and then virtual space. So if I move this camera, you can see it rotating.
Students or actors then become part of the virtual world by stepping in front of the camera, a space where movies and TV shows are being created.
The Mandalorian is probably the one that's gotten the most notoriety from it. Yeah.
Favorite show.
It's a space where students can now become the creators.
A beach or something?
Yeah, so you could have a beach with waves coming in. You could have people walking around in the background, if you want it to look like a crowded scene. Asteroids flying by in the background if you're on a spaceship. Yeah.
Welcome back. The combination of the new LED wall and green screen studio brings technology that is becoming an industry standard in movie making and commercial production. Joining us now is Brian Marins, Master Instructor in Communications, to complete our interviews of the team of collaborators. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You've done a lot of unboxing of equipment, lots of new stuff coming in. Is that exciting for you?
Oh, it really is exciting. Planning this for so long, It's nice to see things coming together now. There's still a lot of work to actually implement it, but having the stuff on campus is just one big step forward.
Yeah. So tell us how this technology is changing the world of production, you know, whether it be news, commercials, or film, because it changes everything, because you can create it instead of having to go out and find it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it brings in a lot more various areas of expertise, whether it's technology or art. It's become a lot more collaborative, but also allowed people to work in more remote locations. So you can have somebody who's working halfway across the world, working on stuff, preparing it for the next morning, and you can even collaborate through the internet in real time to create new assets or new locations, or to even discuss, like, how do we change these things? You can have a director on site saying, these are the things I want changed. You can have somebody on the other side of the world actually making those live changes. So
a director could really be fickle and go, I decided I want this to be a nighttime event.
Very possible, maybe for better or for worse, but yes, absolutely.
So, I mean, how is this better than, say, a traditional set? I mean, is it more flexible? Can it be?
So I think one of the big selling points is the flexibility and the speed of production. So normally in the world where you have to do physical locations, you're maybe going to get 1 or 2 locations knocked out in a day, and sometimes it's dependent on weather. Now you can bring in all your locations and have everything all at one location virtually, and it is much better for timing and scheduling, and also just being conscious of people's time. Actors can cost money, and if you can shorten the amount of time that requires them to be on site, that can save you a lot of money too. So if you can pack 5 to 10 production days into maybe 2 or 3, you're saving a lot of money, and sometimes you're getting a much faster result too.
Yeah. Let's talk about the academics and the classes that you possibly would be teaching or we've created to incorporate use of the LED wall and the green screen studio.
So both areas are going to be looking at how do we create virtual environments like we're in now, but also in the context of either a film or commercial production, but also live production. And both of them function differently, but you have a lot of the similar practices as far as creating assets to create these environments, still learning about how lighting and texturing works. So it's going to be a great collaboration between computer science and art, students who are bringing in those skill sets to be able to implement those on a shooting day.
There might be times where the students are really even more prepared sometimes than the faculty are. It's kind of a mutual learning thing to know how to utilize the resources, right?
Yeah, and since this is still such a new area, constantly learning. So just as the students who are really excited and creative in figuring out new ways how to utilize this equipment, just as us faculty are still, figuring out some of this stuff too. So we get to do it together, which is really exciting.
How unique is it for a university like ours to have this kind of equipment? I mean, not every school has this.
Yeah, so there have been a few in the area, maybe in the Midwest area, that have some of these tools, but it's still such a new thing that I think getting some of the other film departments or communication departments at other universities to buy into this process is maybe takes a little longer. So, but we were at the point where we're ready to move in that direction, and the timing was really great for that.
How is this helpful, even for communication students, marketing, anything, to getting jobs? I mean, is this the forefront of where people need to be?
So there's definitely, this market is expanding so quickly, and everybody, virtual production, in-camera visual effects, those are some major buzzwords that are being utilized right now. And so if you can say, I've experienced this, I have practice in this, I understand video game systems like Unreal Engine and motion tracking, if you have hands-on experience with those things, and not only hands-on experience as far as doing it by yourself, maybe you bought some smaller scale thing you could do at home, but working in a huge collaborative environment with other students and other faculty to move this to a higher end scale, it's going to be really valuable for anyone going through the program.
And there's projects to be created, so they can go out with a portfolio that shows, hey, I worked on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really big about coming out with strong portfolios with our students who graduate here, and so I'm really excited to see what they put together as part of their portfolio.
So you've also been working on the sound studio, which will have surround sound. Tell us about that.
All right, so along with the visuals, we want really strong audio to
Yeah.
support that. And so we've created a full surround sound system mixing area, so a full color grading system also, all in that same space, so we can do Atmos 7.1, 11.1 surround sound mixing. And so not that all clients are necessarily needing that, but to be able to say, I've experienced and mixed in a surround sound system space and a quality room too. So, it's
So maybe not in year one. I mean, the future could be more commercial production.
Absolutely.
For the community as well.
Yeah. So we're looking for some maybe good partnerships with some of the area marketing companies who are needing some creative produced and allow students to find some good collaborative opportunities to learn in real world experiences with real clients and bring them here to our studio, which is going to be probably one of the best studios in the area.
You bet. All right. Well, Brian Marins, thanks for sharing all about it.
Thank you so much.
We hope this gives you some insight into all the new opportunities available for students and in the future and the community as we upgrade our technology here at KGCS TV. As we close, a time-lapse look at the building of our new studios. Thanks for watching. I'm Lisa Aldigas. Have a good day.